Hello, and welcome to Play of the Game. This is going to be a new limited podcast brought to you by Jason. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jason. I play Magic. I like playing Magic. I do a lot of that. I like playing Limited too. I would hope to be somewhat of a Limited specialist. Well, but unfortunately,
You're too good at constructed.
Pro Tours do necessitate constructed. Uh, but I'm pretty excited to play the Limited Championship qualifiers. Anyways, we should move on.
Yes, moving on. I am Ryan. I am one of Jason's teammates on Team Sanctum of All. I am also kind of ideally a limited specialist. Limited is my favorite format. It's the one I enjoy the most. And Jason and I have been playing limited, playing constructed, preparing for Pro Tours together for about a year. And I've learned a lot from Jason about limited. And I kind of thought we should turn this into some kind of podcast. We've done draft log reviews before on Jason's Twitch stream. We called those waterlog teachings. This time we're turning it into a new card, Play of the Game. And yeah, what do we want this podcast to be? So there aren't really any podcasts about limited gameplay. And I think there's a good reason for this. Limited gameplay and just Magic gameplay in general is very, very hard to communicate about in an audio medium. So how do we want viewers to kind of approach this? What we're going to do is every episode, we are going to talk about exactly one decision in a game of Limited. That's the entire episode. We're going to talk about only one individual decision. We'll talk about stuff outside of that decision, the extra information that we have going into it, like what our deck is, what the opponent's deck looks like, what are our thoughts on the format, how has the game kind of progressed to this point. But the idea is that the entire episode is just about one particular spot. And so we're going to link to the 17 lands log for the particular game and spot we're talking about. And I highly recommend that anyone listening to this only on audio, let's say you're listening on Spotify or something, go to the episode description. There will be a 17 lands link, and follow that link and at least just absorb the game state that it kind of brings you to on its own. That will give you a big help in kind of understanding what we're talking about throughout the episode. But the idea is that it should be doable only through audio, because all you have to do is sort of remember one single game state. So for this game state, Jason, do you want to kind of draw us the outline? What is going on in this game?
Yeah, so we are deep into the late game. You said this was a arena direct, so best of one sealed, stinky best of one, but whatever. This is like turn 9. The opponent has 9 lands in play. We have 8 lands in play. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. We just drew, played a land. It's our main phase. We have 3 cards in hand, and the board is what I would call stalled but tense. So the opponent has Compassionate Healer 2/2 that when it gets tapped, use scry and gain a life. The Mechanist, the 1/3 that makes clues when you cast non-creature spells and can turn clues into 3/1 flyers, but they don't have any clues for that. And then they have 3 flyers, a 5/5 Wanshi, so on the board it's mostly just a 5/5 flying vigilance. Technically does some things if we search our library, but we're not going to do that. And then they have 2 copies of Cat Owl, the 3/3 that 3/3 flyer that when it attacks untaps something. Notably, last turn they played a Cat Owl and did not attack with anything, because on our side, one of our most impactful creatures here is our 7/7 tiger moose lion thing. I forget exactly what it's called, but the 7/7 green land cycler with reach, basically. That's basically stonewalling their board. And then we also have just like a somewhat wider board, but mostly of ground creatures compared to them. In the air, we do have a Messenger Hawk, the 1/2, that when you draw your second card for turn, it gets +2/+0. But we don't have any clues or anything to go with it. And we do have a Flexible Waterbender, a Giant Koi, a Badger Mole, and a 2/2 Rumble Arena in play. In addition to our 7/7 and 1/2. So that's the 2/5 that can become a 5/2 if you waterbend. It also has vigilance. The 5/7 that can become unblockable if you waterbend. 4/4 that gives your stuff with counters trample, and 2/2 vigilant earthbent land. So again, board is somewhat tense. They have a bunch of flyers. We have one large reach blocker, stonewalling that off. In our hand, we have a 1/2 flyer, first time flyer. I believe we do have a lesson in our graveyard, so it is actually a 2/3. Uh, we have Origin of Metal Mending, the lesson that can kill an artifact or enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on something and give it indestructible. And we have a Lost Days, the removal spell that tucks something and gives you a clue. We have 7 lands untapped plus our Vigilant land. So we could theoretically cast 2 of our spells, but not all 3. There's some water bending decisions, very complex board state.
Very complicated board state, and I think I agree with your summary of tense but stalled. Sort of the way I try to analyze this board state, if I'm approaching it kind of cold and haven't been like the one playing the game up until this point, I would say that like there are sort of 2 dimensions that are really important to be keeping track of. The first is the ground. So we have a lot of large creatures on the ground. And you might think that that kind of gives us good attacks, but we sort of don't, given the like advantage to the blockers that Magic provides. So just kind of roughly estimating things like we have a 7/7, a 4/4, and a 5/7. Those are our 3 largest creatures. They're all ground creatures, and our opponent has creatures that can block those because even the flyers can block. So they have a 5/5, 2 3/3s, a 1/3, and a 2/2. Let's say we attack with our 7/7. We're not going to do this because it's holding back their flyers. Let's just kind of, for the sake of argument, say that we do that. They can pretty easily block with a 5/5 and a 3/3. We would only trade with the 5/5. That's not a very profitable exchange for us. So given that the board is kind of large enough that both players have access to many options on blocks, it is not trivially easy, I would say, to just like attack with our large creatures and assume that we will be progressing our game state. That is like the first kind of level of analysis. You want to say something?
So, yeah, I do want to add something that I forgot to mention, I believe, which is extremely, extremely, extremely important in this spot. Life totals.
Yes.
They are at 16. We are at 8. So notably, their 5/5, 3/3, and 3/3 in the air are like somewhat trying to threaten lethal on us like pretty quickly if they find a removal spell for like one of our blockers. Like even if they only could remove our 1/2 flyer, they just attack us for 6 in the air, trading their 5/5 for 6 damage basically, and then be able to follow that up with theoretically another attack for 3 to finish us off. So we are definitely in danger of dying in the air, but we do have tools to stave that off with the fact that we have 2 blockers for flyers, and also we have another one in our hand and a removal spell, etc. But that is something very much that we need to think about, that like they're pretty close to getting us dead.
Totally. And yeah, that was the second dimension I was going to mention, is like, what is the situation in the air? And especially with evasion and that kind of thing, life totals become very important. They're obviously important in kind of any board state, but especially here. So even though we have a very large 7/7 reach blocker that can eat any of their flyers, even the large one, the Wanshitong, we are still, because of our life total, in a somewhat precarious position in the air. And that's very important to know. So like this Messenger Hawk that might not look very impactful on this board is actually very important because it basically represents 3 life or 5 life at any point, where we can just block the Wanshitong or the extra flyer and kind of buffer our life total. And that not only kind of protects us from dying, but it holds off their ability to sort of make like a large suicide attack and just pressure our life total in a way that we kind of can't really control. Their life total is also important because that would allow them to make this kind of attack without being afraid of dying on the crackback that could maybe make a couple chump blocks not be dead and then kill us the following turn. So those, I think, are like the 2 things to keep in mind. The ground situation is such that we can't easily attack, although we clearly have many more power and toughness on the board than our opponent. And in the air, we do have safe blocks, but one or two removal spells can pretty easily change that. So we have to be careful is kind of how I would put it. Who would you say is ahead here?
That's a really loaded question. And to answer that, I honestly think that I need to go on and move on a little bit to like the next one of the next sections you have, which is like thinking about what happened like for the preceding moments, the preceding turns of this game. Specifically, so if you just look at this board state, and like look at, oh, they have 2 cards in hand, we have 3 cards in hand, or 3 cards are pretty good, but like who knows what they have in hand, and like they we're at the lower life total, they have like a mechanist which is really scary, and a board presence in the air that's pretty scary. If you just looked at that and like made no other like judgments with regards to the history of the game, uh I think it would be a really close call to say who's ahead, because again, like I think the spells in our hand are very strong, but like they could easily fold to the opponent just like having a removal spell for the 7/7.
Especially because of the
But
Mechanist. It's both another flyer and
yes,
potentially more cards, so their removal spells kind of play double duty in the air game, I would say.
yes, exactly. But I think a very, very, very important factor here is that the opponent last turn chose not to attack with their flyers. All they did was play a cat out and pass no attacks. They didn't like cast a spell. Other than their cat owl. Like this is clearly not a spot where you as the opponent would want to be sandbagging things, right? Like clearly if they had a removal spell, they would just fire it off on the 7/7. If they had a creature, they would just play that creature. And I think most non-creature spells they would have cast, because like it gives them a clue which helps them dig further. You can get a lot of information from the fact that they just like didn't do anything that meaningful last turn other than like play one more flyer. And if you go back even further than that, the turn before they actually played nothing and completely passed it, didn't spend any of their mana for like either half of the turn cycle, not on their turn, not on your turn. um so given that, I'm inclined to believe that they just have nothing in hand. And if they do have nothing in hand, then I feel ahead. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it's a very important part of understanding what's going on here is figuring out that the opponent doesn't actually necessarily have anything. Because if we're being overly cautious and trying to play around things too much, we could give them the time to actually have things. And the fact that they have
Give them the
been
time.
posturing that they don't is important for us to know, like, now is the time to try to turn the corner.
Yeah, we don't want to give them the time to like randomly draw avatars wrath or something.
Yep, totally, which can
As the
happen.
worst case. Um,
So, I think really what we're getting to is the point in this spot is we are ahead, but it's a bit tenuous, and we really have to try to figure out how to kind of turn the corner responsibly, is how I would put it. I think the most complicated part of this decision is really evaluating the game state and the potential of what could be in our opponent's hand, but we're going to have a section on like what does our deck look like, because I think that is an important part of these things. And in other decisions, I think this will end up being more relevant, especially if we're sort of anticipating the game going a bit longer. So I'm going to pull up this link and bring us over to our deck. I might have to adjust the size on this, but I guess we'll work with what we have for now. So this is our deck. It is not, I would say, a particularly impressive sealed deck. It's just kind of blue-green cards in our pool, but we do have 2 Invasion Submersibles, which are very powerful and can kind of swing a game in terms of tempo, which could be really nice here. Although notably, our opponent's biggest creature is not exactly one we want to bounce. That is not necessarily a winning recipe, bouncing their Wan Chi Tong.
it's good tempo.
It is.
I will say that.
It is, for sure. Although the flash makes it so that they can probably just redeploy at the same turn often, especially if they haven't been casting spells. Anyway, I think the main takeaway I would give from looking a quick glance at our deck is just that we don't have many actively good draws for us that would really like turn things around in an easy way. And so I think our opponent's top of the deck is much more live than our top of the deck. A lot of the creatures in our deck are just kind of big medium-sized ground creatures. We have some 2-drops. We have a lot of our big creatures out already, both of the land cyclers, Koi and Sabertooth Moose Lion. We have our best kind of instant speed, interact with the board spell and Lost Days already in our hand. We have another trick, Origin of Metal Bending. Sure, there's a Crashing Wave. Sure, there's a Rocky Rebuke. But like in
Actually, those
general,
are in our graveyard.
oh, they
Those
are?
those two
Okay.
cards specifically are in our graveyard, so
So
we
yeah,
can't even draw to
even
those.
better to know. Like we really don't have that many live draws, and so we're trying to win this game with the tools that we have available to us right now. That's kind of the main conclusion I would say from the deck section. In other game states, our deck will be more relevant because we'll be trying to figure out what our live draws are. I think the conclusion here is just there aren't many. So, how do we think about turning this thing around?
So I do want to add one more thing with regards to like trying to close the game. Another reason, like again, tying back to me thinking that the opponent doesn't really have anything, is another reason to want to close the game is that like right now we have a bunch of strong cards in our hand like that we can use immediately to turn the board state around. But if we like play very patiently and like try to go for a longer game, it's entirely possible that we just keep drawing lands while the opponent like draws some of their best cards. In which case, like basically trying to end the game quickly here, trying to leverage our advantage while we have it, is very important for trying to, for like minimizing the variance there, right? Like minimizing the chance that we draw poorly and they draw well.
Agreed. Totally. So, the intricacies of how we actually do this are, I think, quite difficult, and that is the kind of meat of what we need to be talking about. So, what options are available to us? We have this giant Koi, which can become unblockable and get in for kind of a guaranteed 5 this turn, although that kind of requires us to tap either mana or creatures. We have the flexible Waterbender that can be a 5/2, which can attack into or past everything on their side of the board. Although with a 3/3, it kind of bounces or trades, so that's not clearly profitable for us. Badger Mole and Moose Lion both probably can't attack, I would say, for different reasons. Moose Lion is just because it's a very important blocker, and Badger Mole because it would get eaten by the 5/5, although we do have an Origin of Metal Bending, so maybe that changes things. Messenger Hawk, likely not attacking, it just gets gobbled up by one of the 3/3s. Rumble Arena, also probably not attacking, just gets gobbled up. So we have sort of like 3 relevant attackers, and they're the 3 creatures on our left side, I would say. The Waterbender, the Koi, and the Badger Mole. And then we also have a couple tricks and options in hand. We have Origin of Metal Bending, and we have Lost Days. Both of those are pretty nice. Lost Days is insurance for a combat trick. If we were to get into a combat and end up losing it, we can kind of use that as a bailout. Metal Bending as well is really nice because it lets our 4/4 upgrade and trade with the 5/5. Yeah, those are kind of our options. It also gives a thing Trample, which is notable. Where is your brain going here? Like, what is sort of the guaranteed creatures you're thinking of attacking with?
Okay, so I guess the way I break this down is like the first two creatures I think about whether they're attacking because it's like probably the easiest to figure out is our 7/7 reach and our 1/2 flyer. Those like pretty obviously don't have good attacks because like our 7/7 reach is really good on defense and our 1/2 flyer just gets eaten by everything. So like we're almost certainly not attacking with those. We could think about a situation. One thing that we could think about to try to see if we maybe could attack with those is like we could try to think about Lost Days on our opponent's 5/5 flyer and then attack with a lot of things and like use our clue. We could even use our clue to make our Messenger Hawk a 3/2. But I'm a little sus on that because it is like a very risky line where we like are investing a lot into our opponents like not having anything right now and also not really having anything next turn because if they have something next turn it's not that hard for them to punish our attack by like attacking us for a lot on the crackback. We could analyze that decision further, but I think it just pretty simply ends up being not worth it. Though it is honestly kind of close because 16 is not that much. Like if they face up had no cards in hand, that might be a line that I think we maybe could take because 16 is not actually that much more than the amount of damage that we'd be threatening to do to them.
Yeah.
Like they would probably be forced to trade down.
I will say, like, notably, right, we kind of made the evaluation that they very likely don't have much because they haven't really made plays the last 2 turns. But there are still cards in the format that I think I would be live to read them on here. One might be
Yeah,
Airbender's
like
Reversal, destroy an attacking creature. Were you thinking of a different
yeah,
one?
Razor Rings,
Yep, that one.
Octopus Form, Enter the Avatar State. Like very like reactive cards are theoretically like reactive cards that don't just reach out and kill a thing are still kind of live for them to have.
And there's a pretty wide range of those, like you just listed. So in blue white in particular. So like we should not necessarily assume they have nothing, and we do have the tools to beat not nothing. So we should probably try to do that, which is why I think ruling out the like attack with all, especially with 2 cards in their hand, is a pretty good call. So if we're ruling that out, what is sort of the next place we go to? Do you think?
So one of the most so going from left to right, flexible waterbender is a very interesting attacker because uh it's actually kind of annoying for them to block profitably because if they block with their 2/2, it just gets eaten. If they block with their 5/5 to try to like kill the waterbender, we like waterbend it and like trade, which is not good for them. They can like make some interesting double blocks, but then like for example, blocking with 2/3/3 flyers, but we're really happy to trade flexible waterbender for for like any of their flyers, I'm pretty sure, right? Because like it just takes so much pressure off of us. Um, so in general, I think the flexible waterbender is like a pretty solid choice for an attacker because there's just not very many things that like randomly punish it. It has vigilance, so it doesn't even really cost that much to attack with. They can make some blocks that like force us to waterbend 3, but that isn't that costly with the set of cards in our hand. And like it's just like pretty annoying for them generally.
I think I agree with that. I'm sort of holding back a little bit my true opinions because I know what play I made in this game, even though I'm not sure it's
Uh-huh.
right. Um,
Yeah.
the interesting
Okay.
thing too is
Next.
thinking about the mana we're spending this turn. But yeah, we can get into that after talking about Koi.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the mana we're spending, we have 8 mana available to us. Theoretically, plus like we can waterbend in some ways, but flexible waterbender and giant koi both cost 3. And then we have a 2, and a 5. So like a pretty natural thing to do is like play a 2, activate a water pen, have the ability to activate water bend for 3, and then like have access to our other 2. Like play both of our 2s, or like have access to both of them. Maybe we're not like actually firing off Origin until like it's relevant. But and then like activate one of the water bend abilities, or we could go play 2, play 5. We could even go play 2, play 5, and like water bend tapping some things, but tapping things is sort of costly depending on exactly what we're doing. Like if we're tapping a bunch of blockers in order to make giant koi as our only attacker get in for 5, that's very unappealing. But if we're like tapping the flexible waterbender, a clue, and like our and one land in order to trade the flexible waterbender for Wanchitang, that's very good, right? So yeah, in general, I'm thinking here of playing like 2, 2, and 3, or 2 and 5 is like the default. Um,
Can you actually explain what you mean by those numbers? Are they cards in our
oh,
hand or?
I mean, like we have first time flyer, which costs 2, origin and bending, which costs 2, and then we have the 3 water bend,
I
like
see. We have
the
different
2
chunks of
water
mana
bend
that
for
we
3.
can spend. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
gotcha.
I'm just like adding up to 7 in my mind, basically. Or I
Totally.
guess in this case 8, but like it's actually kind of awkward. I mean, I guess we could go like get Lost Days plus Waterbend, but I'm generally a fan of using the spells in our hand rather than like dumping a bunch of mana into Waterbending here, because like one of our advantages here is that we have these spells in hand that are all quite good on this board state.
Yeah.
Um,
They're
yeah.
very good
Uh,
reactively, and we think that our opponent might have reactive tools, so it's somewhat tempting, I would say, to hold them. That is one instinct I might have in this situation. But you're right that there's upsides to using them proactively, just because we are going to want to waterbend on future turns, and so our mana is maybe tied up a little bit in that, and freeing it up by using our spells from hand this turn, it gives us an advantage in the following turn by like a good amount.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is we can make the giant koi unblock. So I think it's pretty. I think I pretty obviously want to attack with giant koi, whether making it unblockable or not. Specifically, like it's not actually blocking anything relevant on the ground because their ground attackers don't really do anything. So I do really want to attack with it. It attacks for a lot. I don't really want to waterbend it though, because like okay, the situations that waterbending it like is an upside is A, if the opponent wants to chump, okay, that like they can chump, but if they chump, since our board is like actually really sizable, it makes it easier for us to like threaten lethal in the future. So I'm not actually that worried about that, and I would rather, again, we can't cast all the spells in their hand. I want to spend mana on the spells in their hand, ideally. So my instinct is not to make it unblockable just for chumping. And if they like try to offer a trade, first of all, we have like two different ways to blow that out with Origin and Lost Day. So like they could go block 2/2, 3/3, 3/3 on their 5/7, and like we Lost Day is one of the 3/3s and like kill two of their creatures. That's excellent. Or they block like 2/2 Wan Shi Tong on our 5/7. So we can make a similar play. We could use Origin. Like there's a lot of ways that we can like blow out double blocks on the koi, and we even have like both a like removal spell and a protection spell. So it's like really hard for them to like actually get us with any like trick. So in general, I'm not scared of double blocks, and I also don't think I quite care about their chump. So I honestly do not want to waterbend the 5/7, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think there are some appealing reasons to waterbend it, just given that like their chumpers on the ground don't seem like they're going to be that important in this game unless we're pressuring their life total, and proactively pressuring their life total by fiving them guaranteed this turn could be a valuable play. Them being at 11 means it's much more likely that we get to kind of press the attack all button in a following turn and kind of force a lot of bad blocks from them. But given that our mana is pretty constrained this turn, it does make sense why you don't want to waterbend it, because they really don't have good blocks on it anyway, and so we'd much rather spend the mana on something that is progressing our board rather than just taking away a bad option out of all the bad options for them.
Yeah, another thing I want to say is that if you're ever activating Giant Koi's unblockability to prevent a chump, you're kind of making the claim that you're going to keep doing that for the
Yes.
rest of the game. And also that none of your other creatures are getting chumped. Because, like, if you prevent them from chumping, they're still going to have that chump blocker, presumably, in the future to be able to chump block with. Um, and in this case, it's entirely possible that sometime in the future we will want to attack with our 7/7 or our 7/7 and our 4/4, for example. And if we just prevent them from chumping this turn, they can theoretically probably still chump on a later turn. Now it's slightly different because we do have Origin of Metal Bending to give our thing
I was
something
just going to
trample
mention that.
theoretically.
Yeah.
which is theoretically a consideration, but I kind of feel like that's a small enough consideration that like obviously it would make the chump worse later or something. But I think that's a small enough consideration compared to like the I want to spend our mana on spells consideration.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Okay, so do you have a proposed play for us this turn?
Yeah, so my proposed play is to go to combat first, attack with flexible waterbender and giant koi, and I'm very, very close to attacking with Badger Mole. But the reason I don't want to do it is because I think they're live to have either Razor Rings or Airbenders, whatever it's called. Like one of the two, like 2 mana white, do something to an attacker cards that would blow out like they block with Wan Chi Tong, we play Origin to try to eat their Wan Chi Tong, and then they have a removal spell to blow us out. and I don't want to risk that. That's something that they're live to have, and I think that we can be in a good position without that. So I just want to attack with 2-5-5-7. Don't make any like don't like do anything proactively. Let them block first before
Okay.
we. Yeah.
I think I like that as like an initial instinct for what we might want to do. Let's try to think through what might happen if we make this play. So let's say they don't block the 5/7 and they block 3/3 on 2/5. Are we waterbending? Are we doing anything? What is our plan?
Three, so 3-3 on 2-5.
Yeah.
That's
That
an
is my
interesting block.
instinct of what their best block looks like because it a little bit forces action from us. If they have reactive spells, they can wait for us to take an action and then react with those. Um, I don't know. Do you think of a better block from their end?
Yeah, so I mean, we already talked about all of the ways they could block the 5/7,
I think
and
for the
assuming
sake
they
of
like,
trying to like think through the worst case scenario, by the way, we should assume they have some kind of interactive spell because if they don't,
yeah,
there's very few things they can do this game.
yeah. I think okay, so I think that if they block 3-3 on 2-5, that I just want to activate flexible waterbender, probably tapping itself and 2 mana. Uh or I guess we could just tap 3 mana. We don't well no. I would tap itself and 2 mana because it's about to trade. But yeah, I would basically offer the trade for a 3-3. And I would be pretty happy about it because I think that like the I think that we're not going to like um I think that we're not gonna like die in the air if that trade happens.
Taking away a
Another
flyer
thing
is
we
very important. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Another thing we can do is we can activate with tapping itself. Oh yeah, I like this. Activate tapping itself, the Badger Mole, and 1 land, so that we have 7 mana available, so that we can play First Time Flyer and hold up Lost Days. And like, yes, our Badger Mole is theoretically threatening a block on their 2/2, but so will our First Time Flyer after we play it. And assuming the trade goes through, like, we're going to like. Uh, they're gonna have like not that many attackers. We're gonna play another thing to the board. I think that we are safe enough to do that, especially since we're also holding up a one of Lost Days or Origin after that.
Yep, I think that makes sense to me. Um, Giving a couple more complications. Let's say they play Razor Rings in response to us waterbending. Are we playing our
Well
metal bending?
then, yeah, I would just like snap off Origin because it's like
Yeah.
a 2-for-1, right? It trades for their Razor Rings and also their and also their creature.
And it's a board
Um,
impacting one, and we are still pretty safe in the air, even though they're making a clue. And because we're getting rid of a flyer still, so they still only have 3. We have 2 blockers from 8 life total. We're pretty safe.
yeah, and like I mean,
They still
maybe
holding up Lost
both of their
Days.
remaining
Yeah.
cards. It's possible both of their remaining cards are Razor Rings, and if so, like I guess rough beats. Oh, actually, it's really funny where if both of them are specifically Razor Rings, if they go Razor Rings and then we go Origin and then they go Razor Rings, we can swap the power toughness back, and so it'll survive at 1
Notably,
toughness,
notably though,
get
that is
indestructible.
not what flexible waterbender says. It
Oh, is
says
it
it
not what it
becomes
says?
base power and toughness 5/2 until end of turn.
Oh, so unfortunate. Okay. Sorry, fancy play syndrome got to me. Anyways.
um,
um,
yeah. So I agree. It's still good for us, even if they have 2 Razor Rings, right? Like they blow us out in that combat. They've gone down to no cards though, and we still have this Lost Days that we're leaving up. So even if they then like draw a removal spell for 7/7, right? They attack us with all. We get to Lost Days. They're 5/5. Unfortunately, their creatures having vigilance is tough because it means that we can't like crack back for a lot. But we're still at least in the game in that scenario.
yeah.
Just because we're like far enough ahead, I would say that even if we like go for a blowout and they have the second interactive spell, we're still like at parity or maybe slightly behind or something like that.
Yeah. Also, it's really unlikely they have 2 Razor Rings
And then
because
draw
then
a
they would have
removal
probably
spell.
they probably would have attacked into our 7/7 also if they had exactly 2 Razor Rings
True.
because
Very
they
true.
could kill it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my instinct of what to do if they block with 3/3. I think most of the other blocks they could make are pretty obvious. Like if they block with 2/2, we just like eat it. If they block with 5/5, we waterbend to trade. If they block with 1/3, we waterbend to eat it. If they block with 2/3/3s is maybe a more interesting thing. If they block with 2/3/3s, I'm kind of tempted to just fire off Origin
Yeah, I
proactively.
think I like that better.
It gets got by Airbender's reversal exactly, but not Razor Rings. Um,
And again, it's not
Notably,
even a huge blowout if that happens, because we can just like keep our lost days up or follow up with a 2/3 flyer, and we're not dead.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason why I want to like go for Origin if they double block with 2/3/3s is it gives us the possibility, like once our Origin resolves and our thing has indestructible, we can then waterbend and threaten and like eat both of their 3/3s.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Okay, what about no
Um,
blocks?
no blocks. I think no blocks. I just like say damage. Like I
Just take
don't think I
7,
want to
not
pay
10.
3 for. Yeah, I don't. It's kind of close.
The paying 3
Um,
is weirdly like not super costly for us, although it does have costs. Like we can't play both Lost Days and the flyer.
um,
But our ground blockers are not doing very much, so they're a little bit free to tap.
yeah. So like we could pay with again like Waterbender Badgermole land.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. And then be able to play
Flyer and
first
Lost
time flyer
Days.
and hold up lost state.
Yeah.
Um,
And
it
taking
means
10
our
would put them to 6, which is like pretty lethal
yeah,
with
putting
any
them to
kind of
6.
connection next turn.
Yeah, putting them to 6 is really nice because we can waterbend the giant coin. I guess I'm talking myself to wanting to activate waterbender if they don't block.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the main reasons to attack with Waterbender is that it punishes like no blocks. I'm going to use my life total as a resource here somewhat heavily, just because like them going to 6 means that they are in imminent death range at any point. We can just like give our guy indestructible before they have a chance to kill it while it's in combat, and then waterbend it and kill them with an indestructible thing. Obviously, that loses to like Lost Days or something, or doesn't lose, but
Yeah,
like gets answered by it. There's like
but
many
it does
options
put a
that we
lot
have.
of pressure on them.
Right, it means they can't just
Yeah.
like tap out because they're instantly dead, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the attack with both. Let's see, are there any other things to think about besides that before we try to make this play? What, in any kind of reasonable scenario, could we be worried about on their side that like kills us or gets us dead if we like don't leave up Lost Days? Like, let's say they block with 2/3/3s.
Avatar's Wrath.
Origin.
Like
Yeah, I think leaving up the Lost
definitely
Days
the
is
like
important here. Is I guess what I would
yeah,
say. I
yeah.
think we're far enough ahead that we want to hedge against cards like Avatar's Wrath.
Yeah, definitely the worst case for us is they just have Avatar's Wrath. Like, and like Lost Days like a little works sometimes against Avatar's Wrath. It depends on what their choices are with regards to Avatar's Wrath, and also whether they also have a protection spell, which would be Magical Christmas Land for them. But like also just like I don't know, removal spell for 7/7 is like somewhat annoying. Like Origin of Venom Binding protects against some removal spells, but doesn't even protect against like the Pacifism or Watery Grasp because they can activate it in response to us trying to kill the thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think removal spell for 7/7 is like the realistic worst case scenario for us.
Yeah,
which is
and
why
like
we
being able
do
to
really care about pressuring them a lot. Because if this 7/7 goes away,
yeah.
the game is very different, and we are losing it quick.
Yeah. And like just being able to tuck their 5/5 in that case is pretty nice. So okay, there's one more line I think which I think we've like mostly talked about like this line of like attacking with 2/5 and 5/7, which I think is like a pretty reasonable default line. There's one more thing that we should talk about, which is what if we proactively get I almost said get lost like a constructed player. What if we proactively use lost days on their Wanchi Tong so that we can try to attack with our 4/4 as well?
This is a very interesting line. I agree, it's worth exploring. So, they would be left with 4 creatures. Our attacks pretty easily. We could attack with 7/7, 4/4, 5/7, and 2/5 without any like obvious blowout blocks on our end.
I might not attack with the 7/7 still because I might still be a little afraid of like uh, interactive spell swing with 3/1 flyer.
Yes. I mean, we could follow up with our 2/3 flyer, but that loses to removal off the top or something. There's danger
Yeah.
there for sure. And so that actually is important, right? If we're not going to be attacking with our 7/7, how much does the proactive lost days get us? It basically gets us an attack with the badge removal. And it puts a clock on us in the sense that they are going to draw Wan Shi Tong, be able to cast it, and if they can survive long enough to use the cards after they've cast it, probably start to run away with the game. So it is a kind of a declaration that we intend to kill you over the next like 2 turns, which is very doable, but it is a declaration that we're making.
Definitely one of the scariest things they can do if we lost days or Wan Shi Tong is like go play. Well, okay, first of all, they can have protection spell, which is legitimately something that blows it out. But to be fair, protection spell blows out our lost days in most cases. But like by forcing them to do something before we use our lost days, it makes it less likely for them to have protection spell. Either way, one of the scariest things they can do is let that resolve and then play some interactive spell in combat, draw a card using like play an interactive spell in combat, animate the clue, chump with the clue, draw a card with the clue, and then slam a big Wan Shi Tong again. Because like it went second from the top, which means they'll draw it for turn if they crack a clue. So I'm not super thrilled by the Lost Days play.
Yeah, I think in the like actual game when I was playing, I obviously did not have time. We were 40 minutes into the episode. I did not have time to think through all of this in such detail, but my instinct was I want to use the cards in my hand reactively if possible instead of proactively, because there's just a lot of stuff blue-white can do from their hand that they might not have cast yet, that are quite bad for us if we're trying to be like, I'm just going to cast my spells because they do good things on the board. Uh-oh, my opponent had the reactive piece that they needed and I'm actually in big trouble now. It felt like that was a real possibility here. So my instinct was saying, like, I would rather force them to take actions first. And that is a situation I think you'll often find yourself in Limited if you are thinking at the level of caring about, like, what happens if I do this, in the sense of, like, what could my opponent respond with? Okay, so probably not the proactive Lost Days attack with most or everything, given that we don't really want to attack with a 7/7 anyway, and attacking with the 4/4 is not even clearly that good for us. Like, they can double block with 3/3s, and then are we getting anywhere? Maybe. We might be fine taking the 4/4 for 3/3 in the air trade, but like, it just loses to too many protective spells and that kind of thing. Anything else?
Yeah.
Or do we basically just agree on the play of like, try to start killing them by attacking with 2 of our creatures, but in such a way that requires them to act first and doesn't really give them any clear good blocks, doesn't threaten to kill them like next turn, but threatens to, if they really have nothing, basically end the game next turn, because we're going to be able to force them to make a bunch of really bad blocks and have interaction to respond if they do anything.
I think that's just the line I'm going to settle on.
Cool. Yeah, I think I agree. And I don't actually remember exactly what I did in this state. I might have waterbended the koi. Let's find out.
You waterbended the koi.
I did.
I'm looking forward. You waterbended the koi and attacked with only that.
So I played first time flyer. So I'm gonna extend this window just so we don't get like jumping back and forth while I tab through. I played the first time flyer. I waterbended the koi, so I'm not leaving up Lost Days, which is pretty dangerous, I think, as we've discussed. Like, if the 7/7 gets removed, I can chump it, the Wan Shi Tong in the air, but that means I'm taking 6 going to 2, and that's quite dangerous. I waterbend the koi. I only attack with the koi. Not great. I think not nearly the play that we could have made that would have really optimized our chances to win. This was a very difficult position.
Yeah.
And I made the wrong play. Do you have any?
They made a baffling choice, by the way, on their next turn. They had the punish for you making this play, which is to bounce your 7/7 with Submersible. But instead, they bounced their Wan Shi Tong. Like, if they had just bounced your 7/7 and like attacked with all 3 of their flyers, I mean, like the origin would still be good at like eating a flyer.
Yeah. We could like eat and chump and go to 5.
Yeah, like Yeah, theoretically, if they had like bounced your 7/7 and like had something to beat your origin, that would have been really tough for you. But they neither bounced your 7/7 nor it seems did they have anything.
Yeah,
So
I think they were just thinking like the game's going long enough that I'm going to be able to cast this Wanshi Tong again, but tempoing themselves this much just meant that it was very easy for us to close the door. This can
yes.
sometimes happen in arena directs. Your opponents do not make the best possible play at every point, given that I'm a quite strong limited player, I would say, and I definitely did not make the best possible play in this scenario. So yeah, we had a bunch of interaction the following turn, and before they could redeploy their Wanshi Tong, we were able to reduce the board enough that like we were keeping up lost days. We could answer their Wanshi Tong, and I believe I did it before they could untap to protect against like a protection spell. And at that point, the game was basically over. But I think we could have closed it out with a lot more certainty. And yeah, it was a difficult spot, so I wanted to talk about it today. Yeah, that's it. We're gonna try to keep these episodes at least reasonably short. Jason and I can go very long when we talk about things, as I'm sure you've witnessed from our streams if you've watched those, or this episode, for example. We
Or
talked
from
for
this episode.
45 minutes about a single play. It was a complicated board state, and I wanted to use this one as a little bit of a test case for how complicated a single board state can we actually get through an episode and successfully communicate to people and have them follow along with like the lines we're talking about. So I do actively want people to give us feedback on this, like assuming that you were able to look at the board state at the beginning of the episode, followed the 17 lands link, visually processed it, and then tried to listen to the rest of the episode. How useful was this? Were you able to follow what we were talking about, or should we try to find board states that are like less computationally difficult to actually hold in your head? This is sort of the extreme example, I would say, of a limited gameplay decision where it's just very combinatorically hard to like calculate all of the combat math that could be happening. Hopefully this format is able to accommodate even decisions like that, but I'm very open to people saying, sorry, Ryan, it just didn't really work. We're going to need simpler decisions, or even this podcast doesn't work. And if you do make simpler decisions and talk about those, we'll see. This is kind of an experiment, but I think I'm excited about it. I do think limited gameplay is hugely important and something that is hard to work on because there isn't a lot of content out there about it. So yeah,
Yeah,
let us know if you
I will
find a better play also. That's always possible.
I will say, the turn 9, 11 creatures on board, 3 relevant cards in hand that you can't cast all of, 2 activated abilities is quite the first swing at it.
I know. I intentionally am swinging for the fences, and if that doesn't hit, we can dial it back. But I think feeling out the edge cases here is what I wanted to do. And I think hopefully it will work at least in video form, even if it doesn't work in pure audio form for this kind of thing. But if it does work in audio, I would really want to know that, even if it's only like I was able to follow most of it and I got the gist of what you guys were talking about and that was useful.
Yeah.
I'll take that for sure.
Also, to be fair, to be fair, I do think that these kinds of board states are the ones that, like, are the most difficult for people and the
Right.
most
And
like difficult to
going
parse,
through
most
how to
useful to
actually
figure out.
parse them, I think can be very
Yeah.
useful, because knowing what is important to think about helps you make that decision in a much shorter time span. So this is in some ways like going slow to go fast, where if you think about these board states in a very slow, methodical way in practice, you will be able to calculate them a lot faster in the actual games. Obviously, practice is the best way to do that, but slow, deliberate practice is part of that, and I think this counts. So yeah, thanks for listening, folks. Let's just do a quick like where you can find us. So I am on Blue Sky, r-condon.bsky.social. Jason, where can people find you?
I'm just JasonILTG everywhere. Well, I guess not on Twitter anymore. Blue Sky and Discord. Yeah, you can find me there.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.